Hello crafty friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm putting together a fun and playful scene using the Sassy Chickens stamp set from the latest Cat Scrappiness release. While looking through my stash, I found a few older Cat Scrappiness products that paired perfectly with this idea. So I decided to mix them in two. We'll be crafting a very whimsical, witty little scene featuring two cheeky chickens and some light-hearted sentiments to match our scene. Well, before we dive in, I would really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Before we get started, let's take a closer look at the supplies that I'll be using to bring today's card to life. Now, I've gathered a mix of fun farm and cowboy themed stamp set, all from Cat Scrappiness. The star of our show will be the Sassy Chicken stamp set, which will be the main focal point of our card today. To build the scene, I'll be pulling in elements from the Farmhouse stamp set, specifically that charming farm table, which I thought worked perfectly for the layout that I had in my mind. And to tie everything together, I will have some fun, playful sentiments from the Cowboy Quokka stamp set. This combination of old and new products really adds fun and dynamic feel to the card. The Sassy Chicken stamp set is bursting with personality, humor, and whole lot of attitude. It features 9 fabulous and feisty chickens, along with some beautiful sentiments. Plus, the coordinating die set makes it super easy not just to cut out the chickens but also the sentiments, making your crafting projects absolutely quick and seamless. This is the Cowboy Quokka sentiment stamp. I'll be using the Sassy Since Forever sentiment from this one, which I felt was the perfect match for our equally sassy chickens. Now, for my background, I'll be bringing in some soft details using the Clouds and Grass stencil by Cat Scrappiness to help set the scene. I began by securing an A2 sized white cardstock panel onto the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Mat. This helps keep both the panel and stencil firmly in place while I do my ink blending. For the background, I used the Cloud and Grass stencil, blending in some lovely shades of blues and greens from the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink collection. I kept the blending simple and clean, just one solid color for each layer without adding any extra shading. Well, if you enjoy adding extra dimension and layers to your card fronts, you could also opt for die cut clouds and grass instead of stenciling. Cat Scrappiness offers a great selection of clouds and grass border dies on their website that would work beautifully for building a more textured scene. After finishing the stenciled background, I laid out all the stamped images on the card front to get a sense of the final placement and ensure everything fits nicely within the panel. One of the chickens is perched confidently on the farm table while the other looks like it's either flying off or maybe taking a dramatic tumble. Well, I went ahead and stamped all of these images and die cut before arranging them onto this fun and colorful stenciled background. To stamp my images, I placed another A2 size panel onto the Altenew stamp wheel and stamped all the three images using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Since I planned on heat embossing the images, I went with this pigment ink to ensure that the embossing powder would stick perfectly. Normally, I'd just use my Memento black ink and jump straight into coloring, but today I was in mood for a little extra shine and sparkle. So I added a layer of clear embossing powder over the stamped images for that glossy raised finish. To set the embossing powder, I like to use my heat gun with a little bit of care and patience. One important tip I always follow is to keep the heat gun moving steadily over the image rather than holding it in one spot for too long. Staying in one place can overwhelm the embossing powder and even cause the cardstock to warp, which is definitely something we want to avoid. So the trick is to move the heat evenly across the entire stamped area until the embossing powder melts and you get that smooth, shiny finish. Another helpful tip: before bringing the heat gun to your paper, let it run for about a minute to fully heat up. Preheating the tool not only speeds up the embossing process but also reduces the amount of time the paper is exposed to heat, thereby minimizing the chances of warping. Once the embossing was done, I set the panel aside for about 30 seconds to let it cool completely before moving on to the coloring. For this project, I reached out for my Spectrum Noir tri-blend markers to color in the delicate feather details on both the chickens as well as the farm table. I used a combination of warm oranges and rich browns for the feathers around their necks and head, giving them that lively rustic feel. For a pop of color, I used a bright red to fill in the checkered tablecloth pattern, which really adds a cheerful sense to the scene. As for the bodies of the chicken, I went with a soft muted gray from my Ohuhu alcohol marker collection to keep things balanced. Just like the background, I kept the coloring simple and clean, sticking to solid fills with minimum shading to let the playful scene and bold lines really shine. I'm really excited about these sassy chickens, and I'm also curious to experiment with beautiful blend of watercolors on these images in the future. Watercolor can add such a soft and organic feel that might bring a whole new dimension to these feisty little characters. Now, if you were to give these chickens a splash of watercolor or any other color combinations, what would you choose? I'd love to hear your creative ideas, so please drop your favorite color combos in the comments below. Now, once I was done coloring these images with my alcohol markers, I reached out for the coordinating dies to precisely cut out each piece. Now, I like to use my Spellbinder's Platinum 6 die cutting machine for this step, which makes the process quick, easy, and clean. There's something so satisfying about perfectly cut images that fit seamlessly with your design. I'm really happy with how these chickens turned out. They are playful and full of attitude, yet still absolutely adorable. It's such a fun combination that really brings the card to life. If you want to see even more creative projects and ideas using this fantastic new release, be sure to visit the Cat Scrappiness YouTube channel and their website. They have loads of inspiration that's sure to spark your own creativity and help you craft something amazing. Now that both our focal point images and the background are ready, it's time to bring everything together and assemble the card. I'll begin by placing the farm table onto the lower left corner of the panel. To secure it firmly, I used liquid glue, which gives a strong hold and allows for some slight adjustment before it dries. Next, I adhered one of the sassy chickens directly onto the table, again using liquid glue to keep it flat and secure. This helps ground the scene and establish our main point of interest. As I had envisioned earlier, the second chicken is going to look as if it's either flying off or perhaps falling off the edge of the table. To add some extra dimension and make this action really pop, I attached the chicken to the edge of the table using foam tape. This lifts it up off the surface, creating depth and giving the card a more dynamic and realistic feel. The raised layer adds visual interest and helps the chicken stand out as if it's caught mid motion, adding a playful touch to our scene. Off camera, I went ahead and heat embossed both of my sentiments to really make them stand out. The first sentiment, which says "Sassy since forever," was a perfect fit for the chicken perched confidently on the table. The second, smaller sentiment, was placed beside the chicken that looks like as if it's falling or flying off the edge, which added a fun and playful touch that perfectly complements the scene. I embossed both the sentiments on black cardstock using white embossing powder. The crisp white against the dark background creates a striking contrast that really ties the whole card together and adds a polished yet professional look. I then carefully trimmed off any excess cardstock that extended beyond the edges of the panel to keep everything neat and tidy. I then went ahead and adhered this completed panel onto a standard A2 size card base, and the card was ready for its big reveal. Here's the finished card, and I absolutely love how this turned out. If you know my style, you know that I'm all about clean and simple designs, but with these witty chickens, I think I nailed the perfect balance between simplicity and personality. One of my favorite parts of this project was mixing products from multiple cat scrappiness releases to create a cohesive and beautiful card front. The Sassy Chickens release is full of charm and clever details. It's not just this stamp and coordinating die set, but you'll also find a chicken coop die set and coordinating paper pads that complement the entire collection beautifully. I hope you had fun watching today's video as much as I did creating this project for you guys. All the supplies I used today, along with everything from the Sassy Chickens release, will be listed down in the description box below for you to check out. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.